For decades, the BTK Killer haunted Wichita, Kansas, his meticulously staged crime scenes leaving forensic experts baffled and his victims' families without answers. But his reign of terror was ultimately undone by a single, unseen digital breadcrumb he himself dropped. His methods were chillingly precise, his vanishings total. Yet in his twisted need for recognition, he overlooked the most fundamental rule of modern anonymity: nothing is ever truly deleted. The terror began on January 15, 1974, a frigid Tuesday morning in Wichita, Kansas. Joseph Otero, a father of 4, was getting ready for his job at the Cessna aircraft plant. His wife, Julie, was still home with their children, 11-year-old Josephine, 9-year-old Joseph II, and 7-year-old Catherine. 22-year-old Charlie, their eldest, was already gone for work. At some point between 8 a.m. and 11:30 a.m., a man forced his way into their modest single-story home at 803 North Edgemore Street. He bound the family members with cords and nylon stockings, placed plastic bags over their heads, and strangled them. Josephine's body was discovered in a bedroom closet, Joseph II in another, Julie in the master bedroom, and Catherine in the basement. It was a scene of unspeakable horror, yet one marked by a chilling order. The perpetrator had spent hours inside the home, carefully selecting items, cleaning surfaces, and orchestrating the scene. When Charlie Otero returned home from work that afternoon, he found a scene that would forever scar him. The front door was unlocked, a light was on, and a sense of unnatural quiet hung in the air. He called out to his family, receiving no answer. What he discovered inside was beyond comprehension. The police arrived quickly, establishing a perimeter around the unassuming house. Detectives walked through the rooms, their faces grim. The lack of forced entry, the precise binding, the method of death, it all pointed to a killer who had planned every detail. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. It was personal, controlled, and deeply disturbing. The killer had even taken souvenirs, a perverse trophy from his gruesome act, further complicating the investigation. There was no clear motive, no obvious link between the Oteros and the perpetrator. The entire city of Wichita was gripped by a fear that was both palpable and invisible. A ghost had walked among them, leaving only death. The community struggled to comprehend such a brutal act against an ordinary family. Joseph Otero was a hard-working man, Julie a devoted mother. Their children were just beginning their lives. The funeral was a somber affair, attended by hundreds, all asking the same unanswerable question: who could do such a thing? The police had few leads. Witnesses reported seeing a light-colored car, possibly a Plymouth or Dodge, parked near the Otero home that morning, but descriptions of a suspect were vague and conflicting. There was no usable fingerprint, no DNA evidence that could be processed with the technology of the 1970s. The killer had left almost nothing behind. It was a perfectly executed act of terror, seemingly designed to leave no trace. This initial absence of evidence would become a hallmark of the BTK Killer's operations, a testament to his meticulous, almost obsessive planning. Over the next few years, the terror continued. Catherine Bright, a 21-year-old woman, was brutally murdered in April 1974. Her brother, Kevin, was also attacked but managed to survive, though he could only provide a partial description of the assailant. In March 1977, Shirley Vianne Relford, a 24-year-old mother, was found strangled in her home. Her 3 young children were present during the attack, though unharmed. Later that year, in December, Nancy Fox, a 25-year-old woman, was found dead in her home. The pattern was emerging: forced entry, binding, strangulation, and a chilling control over the scene. The police were increasingly desperate, but their efforts were continually thwarted by the killer's elusiveness. Each crime scene was a blank canvas where only the results of horror were painted, the artist himself long gone. The moniker BTK emerged not from police, but from the killer himself. In October 1974, a letter arrived at the Wichita Eagle newspaper claiming responsibility for the Otero murders. It detailed gruesome specifics that only the killer could have known, such as the exact positions of the victims and the items taken. This was not a confession of remorse, but an act of chilling boastfulness, an announcement. He signed it BTK, standing for Bind, Torture, Kill. This was the first time the public truly understood the mind behind the murders, an individual who reveled in control, in the terror he inflicted, and in the macabre act of communication. He wasn't just killing, he was creating a narrative, a legend around himself. The city now had a name for its boogeyman, and it was a name he chose. This taunting continued throughout his active period. Letters, poems, and even coded messages were sent to media outlets and police, each one more audacious than the last. He reveled in the attention, demanding that his chosen name be used. He would communicate details about his victims, mock the police, and describe his fantasies. He was an architect of fear, and these communications were his blueprints, not just for future crimes, but for his own twisted fame. The paradox was stark. A killer who was seemingly perfect at leaving no physical trace, yet who desperately needed to be seen, to be acknowledged for his heinous acts. It was this deep-seated psychological need, this insatiable hunger for recognition, that would ultimately prove to be his most profound and fatal flaw. It was an unseen chink in his armor, not in how he committed his crimes, but in how he responded to their aftermath. After Nancy Fox's murder in 1977, BTK went dormant for several years. This extended silence left police and the public in a state of agonizing suspense. Had he moved? Was he in prison for another crime? Had he died? The lack of activity was almost as terrifying as the crimes themselves, because it meant the unknown was still lurking. Then, in April 1985, he resurfaced with the murder of Maureen Hedge, 53, who disappeared from her home. Her body was later found by her son near a rural road, bound and strangled. In September 1986, Vicki Wegerle, 28, was found dead in her home, bound and strangled, her young children present in the house. The signature was unmistakable. And in January 1991, Dolores Davis, 62, was found dead in her home, another victim of BTK. He had continued to evade capture, weaving in and out of the public consciousness like a phantom. What does it take for true evil to finally make a mistake? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. The authorities were under immense pressure. Task forces were formed and disbanded, new investigative techniques were tried, but nothing yielded concrete results. The BTK case became a cold case, one of the most frustrating and terrifying unsolved mysteries in American criminal history. The families of the victims lived in a permanent state of grief and uncertainty, knowing the killer was still out there. Years turned into decades, children grew up, victim siblings grew old, but the specter of BTK never truly faded from Wichita. It was a wound that refused to heal, a constant reminder of how a single individual could hold an entire city hostage through fear. The illusion of his perfect crimes grew stronger with each passing year, fueled by his silence and the absolute lack of forensic breakthroughs. Then, in 2004, after a 13-year hiatus, BTK began to communicate again. His re-emergence was triggered by media reports about cold cases, specifically the renewed interest in the Otero murders. It was as if he couldn't stand the idea of being forgotten. His ego demanded acknowledgement. He sent a series of letters and packages to Wichita media outlets and police, each containing disturbing mementos and clues. These included a driver's license belonging to Vicki Wegerle, a doll tied in a manner similar to his victims, and chilling poems. This was a clear message. He was back, and he wanted everyone to know it. This act of re-engagement, born of a deep psychological need for recognition, would become the ultimate catalyst for his downfall. He wasn't perfect, he was human, and humans crave attention. In one of these communications, a packet sent to Cake TV in Wichita, BTK included a floppy disk. This was November 2004, an era when digital forensics was rapidly advancing. He asked police if they could trace the disk. It was a taunt, a challenge, delivered with the arrogant confidence of someone who believed they were technologically superior, impenetrable. He believed himself untouchable, that his digital footprint, if any, would be impossible to follow. The police, of course, responded through the media, telling him that it would be safe for him to send the disc, that they would not be able to trace it. This was a calculated deception, a psychological trap laid by investigators who understood their adversary's need for control and superiority. They knew his weakness for games, and he fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. The moment that floppy disk landed in the hands of digital forensics experts, the perfect crime began to unravel. This was the fatal, unseen flaw. The killer, so meticulous in his physical crime scenes, was completely naive about the digital realm. The disk contained a deleted Microsoft Word document. Modern forensic tools could recover deleted files, and more importantly, they could recover metadata associated with those files. Within the properties of the recovered document, forensic analysts found two crucial pieces of information. The document had been created by Dennis and last saved by DennisRader. Furthermore, the file's metadata showed that it was last modified at Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita. This was the first, concrete, undeniable lead in a case that had stumped law enforcement for over 3 decades. The name DennisRader and the Christ Lutheran Church immediately became the focal points of the investigation. Police quickly ran the name through databases, and a DennisRader indeed existed. He lived in Park City, a suburb just north of Wichita. He worked as a compliance officer for Park City, a seemingly mundane job. Even more astonishingly, he was a long-serving, respected member of Christ Lutheran Church, having held positions on the church council and as a Cub Scout leader. The meticulous, brutal BTK killer, the phantom who had terrified Wichita for so long, was a middle-aged family man, a husband and a father, living an outwardly normal life. The sheer ordinariness of his existence was a shocking contrast to the monstrous acts he committed in secret. This single, overlooked detail changed everything. Do you think every cold case holds a similar microscopic clue waiting to be found? Investigators moved with extreme caution, building their case against DennisRader. They couldn't afford to make a mistake, not after so many years. They needed irrefutable proof. They began subtle surveillance, observing his movements, his habits. The picture that emerged was one of a highly compartmentalized individual, someone living a double life with chilling effectiveness. The next critical piece of evidence came from an unexpected source, Rader's daughter. Investigators obtained a Papa Nicolau test from her without her knowledge. Using this sample, they were able to extract DNA. They then compared this DNA to samples collected from the crime scenes, specifically from under the fingernails of Vicki Wegerle, a victim from 1986. The result was a familial match. The DNA evidence, combined with the metadata and the unique nature of the BTK communications, solidified the case. On February 25, 2005, DennisRader was arrested. He was pulled over in his black Jeep Grand Cherokee near his home. The arrest was quiet, almost anticlimactic for a man who had orchestrated so much fear and chaos. When confronted, Rader calmly asked the arresting officers, "Why are you here?" He was taken into custody, and the news exploded across Wichita and the nation. The BTK Killer, the elusive demon, had a face, a name, and a suburban address. The relief that swept through the community was immense, mingled with a profound sense of disbelief and horror that such a monster had walked among them, unnoticed, for so long. The perfect crime scene had been broken not by a detective's brilliant deduction at the scene itself, but by a digital breadcrumb left years later, miles away. In the interrogation room, DennisRader initially denied everything. But as the evidence mounted against him, the metadata, the DNA, the undeniable facts from his own letters, his composure broke. He confessed. He recounted in chilling detail each of his 10 murders, describing his planning, his methods, and his twisted motivations. He spoke of Project Takedown, his personal classification system for his victims. He described how he would stalk his targets, fantasize about the acts, and then execute them with cold precision. He admitted to the binding, the torture, and the killing, revealing the dark fantasies that had driven him for decades. His confession was a raw, unfiltered look into the mind of a serial killer, a man who viewed his victims as objects for his pleasure and his crimes as art. The public was stunned by the details of his confession and the sheer banality of evil embodied in DennisRader. He wasn't some shadowy figure. He was the local Cub Scout leader, the church council member, the neighbor. How could someone lead such a seemingly normal life while harboring such unspeakable darkness? This was the ultimate contradiction, a testament to his psychological manipulation and the ability to project an entirely different persona to the world. His meticulous planning wasn't foolproof, it was merely a facade. His undoing wasn't a complex piece of forensics or a vigilant witness, but a simple oversight in the digital world he thought he understood, a world he believed he could manipulate as easily as he manipulated his victims. DennisRader pleaded guilty to 10 counts of first-degree murder. During his sentencing, he offered no real remorse, instead giving a clinical, almost academic description of his crimes. He was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms, a total of 175 years without the possibility of parole. He remains incarcerated at the El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. His capture brought closure to the victims' families, but it also left enduring questions about the nature of evil, the effectiveness of law enforcement in an earlier era, and the unseen vulnerabilities in even the most carefully constructed deceptions. Aquelas vulnerabilidades, invisíveis a olho nu para o público e até para Hyder por longo tempo, residiam não apenas na evolução da tecnologia, mas na própria psique do assassino. Sua vaidade corrosiva, a necessidade de ser reconhecido, mesmo que anonimamente, e a certeza inabalável de que era o mais inteligente na sala. Ele havia se retirado do jogo de comunicação por anos, um espectro silencioso que atormentava Wichita apenas através de memórias. Mas o silêncio, para mentes como a dele, é um tipo de tormento. A adrenalina do confronto com a polícia, o deleite em semear o medo, eram vícios. E como qualquer vício, exigia doses cada vez maiores. Foi em 2004, quase 3 décadas após o início de sua onda de assassinatos e mais de 10 anos após seu último assassinato conhecido, que o BTK emergiu das sombras novamente. Ele começou a enviar cartas e pacotes à mídia e à polícia, não apenas reivindicando a autoria de assassinatos não resolvidos, mas também provocando, descrevendo detalhes que só o verdadeiro assassino poderia saber. Era um jogo de gato e rato, com Hyder ditando as regras. Ele enviava desenhos, enigmas, até joias roubadas de suas vítimas. Cada correspondência era um grito de "Eu ainda estou aqui, eu ainda estou no controle". A polícia de Wichita, juntamente com o FBI, reabriu o caso com um vigor renovado, mas com uma arma diferente, a era digital. O mundo havia mudado drasticamente desde que Hyder cometeu seus primeiros crimes. As impressões digitais ainda eram cruciais, o DNA estava se tornando a espinha dorsal da perícia, mas agora havia um novo rastro, o rastro digital. Hyder, em sua presunção, subestimou profundamente essa mudança. Era um homem de uma era analógica, acostumado a cartas de papel e esconderijos físicos. A tecnologia era uma ferramenta nova que ele pensava dominar, mas que na verdade estava apenas começando a desvendar seus próprios segredos. A virada decisiva veio com uma pergunta de Hyder enviada em um cereal box. Se ele enviasse um disquete para a mídia, seria possível rastreá-lo? A polícia, com a experiência de anos de armadilhas psicológicas e a esperança de capturá-lo, respondeu publicamente através de um anúncio de jornal que não havia problema em enviar um disquete, pois ele não poderia ser rastreado. Essa foi a isca, uma aposta de alto risco que dependia da arrogância de Rader e de sua incompreensão das nuances digitais. Ele mordeu. O disquete de 1,44 polegadas, um artefato quase obsoleto mesmo em 2005, chegou pelo correio. Rader havia acreditado na palavra da polícia, ou talvez, mais precisamente, acreditou em sua própria inteligência superior para mascarar qualquer rastro. Ele pensou ter limpado o disquete, formatá-lo para apagar seus rastros. Mas a equipe forense digital, uma área que Rader provavelmente nem imaginava existir em sua forma sofisticada, sabia que formatar não era o mesmo que apagar completamente. Era como passar um pano sobre uma mancha de tinta, a marca ainda estaria lá para quem soubesse onde e como procurar. No disquete, os peritos recuperaram metadados que Rader pensou ter erradicado. Um arquivo do Microsoft Word aparentemente excluído foi restaurado, e dentro dele o detalhe crucial: Dennis. Não era um Dennis qualquer. Os metadados indicavam que o documento havia sido salvo pela última vez por Dennis e que a última pessoa a modificá-lo era de Christ Lutheran Church. A equipe da força-tarefa tinha um nome e uma localização. Não era uma pista quente, era um incêndio florestal. De repente, a busca pelo fantasma de BTK tinha um rosto, um endereço, uma vida. A polícia cruzou esses dados com registros de veículos, batizando a suspeita de Operação Gato Gordo, uma brincadeira macabra com as iniciais de Rader. Gatos gordos eram uma raça de coelhos que ele possuía. Havia um homem chamado DennisRader, que não só era um membro proeminente da Christ Lutheran Church, mas também o líder do Cub Scout local, um fiscal de conformidade, um zelador de sua comunidade. O choque inicial foi quase paralisante. Como aquele homem, tão integrado, tão normal, poderia ser um monstro? A vigilância começou imediatamente. O trabalho forense não parou no disquete. Eles precisavam de provas irrefutáveis. Uma amostra de DNA era a peça final do quebra-cabeça. Os investigadores foram astutos, sabendo que Rader era paranoico e cauteloso. Eles sabiam que ele não entregaria uma amostra voluntariamente. A solução veio de uma clínica médica onde a filha de Rader havia recebido tratamento. Uma amostra de Papa Nicolau dela, guardada em um laboratório, forneceu o DNA familiar que a polícia precisava. O DNA do assassino, recuperado de um crime de 1974, foi comparado. Havia uma correspondência, não apenas uma correspondência, mas uma confirmação da linha paterna. A prova era esmagadora. Em 25 de fevereiro de 2005, DennisRader foi preso fora de sua casa em Park City, Kansas. A cena da prisão foi um microcosmo de sua vida dupla. Ele estava a caminho do trabalho, aparentemente um cidadão comum, quando foi abordado pela polícia. Não houve resistência, apenas uma quietude chocante. Sua casa, depois, revelaria os frutos de décadas de um universo secreto de fetichismo, planejamento de assassinatos, troféus e os instrumentos de sua tortura, tudo escondido à vista de todos. A Casa dos Horrores estava por trás da fachada de uma família americana suburbana. A grande ironia é que a necessidade de Rader de se vangloriar, de manter um diálogo perverso com aqueles que o caçavam, foi o que o expôs. Se ele tivesse permanecido nas sombras, se não tivesse se deixado seduzir pela ideia de que era invulnerável à nova era digital, talvez nunca tivesse sido pego. Sua perfeição não residia em uma ausência de erros, mas em uma ausência de detecção de erros por tempo suficiente. Mas a falha fatal foi sua arrogância, seu desejo incontrolável de reconhecimento, que o levou a testar os limites de uma tecnologia que ele não compreendia completamente. Pense por um momento sobre o que isso significa. Um homem que planejou assassinatos meticulosamente, que evitou a captura por 3 décadas, foi derrubado por um pedaço de código digital, uma assinatura eletrônica deixada involuntariamente. Este é o paradoxo da mente criminosa, o ponto cego onde a inteligência calculista se choca com a fraqueza humana. Você já se perguntou o que leva um indivíduo a acreditar tão cegamente em sua própria invencibilidade a ponto de cometer um erro tão fundamental? É uma questão que permanece no centro de muitos estudos criminais. Se você também se intriga com as falhas humanas que derrubam os mais meticulosos criminosos, considere deixar um comentário abaixo com sua opinião sobre o que realmente o levou a esse erro fatal. A captura de Rader não fechou completamente a porta para todas as perguntas, mas iluminou a natureza em constante mudança da investigação criminal.
A polícia aprendeu mais uma vez que o elemento humano é tanto a maior força quanto a maior fraqueza. Em qualquer cenário de crime, sua fraqueza foi a incapacidade de manter seu ego sob controle, de resistir ao impulso de se apresentar como o mestre por trás do horror. A cada nova revelação sobre o caso BTK, a sociedade é forçada a confrontar a ideia desconfortável de que o mal pode se esconder por trás de uma fachada de normalidade quase impecável. Não era um monstro escondido nas florestas, mas um membro ativo da comunidade, que ajudava seus vizinhos e frequentava a igreja. Essa é talvez a vulnerabilidade mais profunda e aterrorizante que o caso Rader expõe. A capacidade de um indivíduo de projetar uma imagem tão radicalmente diferente de sua realidade interior e a falha coletiva em ver além dessa máscara. Se você está intrigado por essas investigações que desvendam a psique humana e os bastidores dos crimes mais complexos, inscreva-se no canal para não perder nossas próximas análises. A história de DennisRader, o BTK, é um testemunho sombrio da mente que busca controle através da violência e do poder, mas que no final é derrubada por uma falha de caráter tão elementar quanto a arrogância. A obsessão pela perfeição foi seu objetivo, mas a necessidade de ser reconhecido foi o seu calcanhar de Aquiles, um erro invisível que esperou décadas para vir à tona, revelado não por uma confissão dramática, mas por um rastro digital silencioso. O que você acha que é mais assustador? A maldade em si ou a capacidade dela de se camuflar tão perfeitamente na vida cotidiana? Este caso continua a ser um marco na história da criminologia, não apenas pela brutalidade dos crimes, mas pela forma como ele revelou que, não importa o quão meticulosamente um criminoso tente esconder sua verdadeira identidade, a verdade tem uma maneira de emergir, muitas vezes de onde menos se espera.
Se você achou esta análise instigante, por favor, deixe um like no vídeo para nos ajudar a continuar investigando as camadas mais profundas de casos como este. The BTK Case está-se um chilling monumento ao ego e à evoluindo natureza de investigação criminal. Por mais de 30 anos, DennisRader believed he had created perfect crime scenes, leaving no physical evidence that could ever link him to his horrific acts. Ele praidava-se de sua habilidade de desaparecer, de tornar-se um gosto na noite. Mas seu fatal falho não estava em seus nós ou em sua escolha de estrangulação tous. Era em seu insaciável, ao menos criançado, necessidade de validação, seu desejo de provar sua superioridade à polícia. Ele não podia resistir ao ânsia de comunicar, de postar, de playar games, e no digital época, esses jogos tinham regras que ele não entendia. A metadata, uma invisível camada de informação, detraiu-lhe. O que este caso profundamente ilustra é que a perfeição perfeita em crime é uma ilusão, often shattered não por grandes gestos, mas pelos menores, mais overlooked erros humanos. Rader's downfall foi um stark reminder que mesmo os mais meticulosos e psicopáticos indivíduos podem ser desfazidos pela sua própria hubris e um simples, significativo detalhe parecido. Os crime-cenas eram limpos, mas o cérebro do quileiro não estava. Seu orgulho foi seu downfall, provando que o elemento humano, seja na forma de desejo por reconhecimento ou um momento de digital carelessness, é ultimamente o alvo não visível que pode desmanchar a mais cautelosamente construída façada de um perfeito crime. The BTK case proves that even the most calculated evil leaves a trace. Se você acredita na relentada busca da verdade, considere se juntar à nossa comunidade por meio de subscribing a Veritas Crime. Nós descobrimos o não visto.